And joining us for this segment of Reaching Out is the president of the CSA, which is the Council for Supervisors and Administrators, President Ernest Logan. Now, you represent the principals and above in the schools, correct?
Well, let's do it this way. Yeah. Principals and those who under them, assistant principals, education administrators, early childhood directors, members of the city-funded daycare centers. We basically tend to represent everyone below the level of deputy superintendent and superintendent.
And how many members do you have currently?
About 6,600 members active, and I have about 12,000 retirees. I'm probably one of the few unions that have retirees as part of their bargaining unit. They vote only on elections, but we do have a very active retiree unit, and I can talk a little bit about that later on.
Okay. We have just begun a new school year, and I know that each year brings continuing challenges and new ones as well. Now that the year has started, and this is roughly in October, about maybe 4 to 6 weeks we had a school. What's your assessment so far?
Well, the jury is still out on how well we're doing, but I think we're in the right direction. I'm absolutely pleased that the chancellor is there. I've known her a long time. I expect great things from her because she's an educator. I think we'll get a little bit away from this idea of this constant competition and monitoring, and doing more in regards to sharing best practices across the school system. But there are still many challenges that she faces. Probably the largest one is this idea of struggling schools. And it's like trying to correct the wrong that went on for so long about how we supported schools and how we made them better instead of holding them accountable and didn't give them the resources. So she has her hands cut out for her. But I think the telling piece will be by the end of November, we will really see the trajectory really going up. There's been some good news lately on what students are doing now with the AP courses and advanced placement and how well they're doing. So I think, as I said, though, the jury's still out. It's still early.
Now, AP courses that you mentioned, they were very important. A lot of people don't understand when you get AP courses that some of the colleges accept them as college work. Because my daughter had 3 of her AP classes accepted up in the University of Hartford, and because of that, she's going to graduate a half a semester early. Which
will save you as the parent lots more money. Yes. And this is an issue that we've raised so often. Every child should be given the opportunity to have AP courses. So with the mayor's push on this equity and excellence, as well as the chancellor's push of working with college boards and David Coleman and college boards, we're going to see to it that every 10th and 11th grader has an opportunity to take AP courses. We're also going to see to it that every kid in New York City takes the PSAT, because that's really where it is. Yeah. And so when you have high expectations, our students do extremely well because they meet those expectations that you give to them. So this is really important. And yes, on the other side, it's a money saver for the parents. It's a money saver for the students because you get credits going into college for the advanced placement courses that you've scored a 4 or 5 on.
That's the best kept secret. I tell you, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad that your goal is to have every child in New York City have an opportunity.
Opportunity, and that's the key. Yeah. I think, Greg, one of the problems that we seem to have is that we determine as adults what opportunities students should have instead of opening up everything for students and let them rise to it. And when we constantly say, well, they can't do it, then we have very low expectations. So if you give the opportunity, they'll take advantage of the opportunity.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. How has the expansion of pre-K programs impacted the schools?
Well, we were, as a union, always pushing for universal pre-K. As I said early on, I represented for years members in the city-funded early childhood programs. And these are CBO community programs that the city funded, but yet they were run by boards, and they had an umbrella group that really were the managers or the supervisors of these local centers. And we always push for pre-K because we found as in elementary schools, and especially elementary school principals, would tell us that with students who had had an early childhood experience, a quality early childhood experience were better prepared for elementary school. And so by the time they got to third grade, they were already reading and they were helping. So with this expansion, which we pushed, and the mayor and I didn't always agree about how best to fund this, but we agreed that this should happen. With this push of universal pre-K, and I mean 65,000 kids in universal pre-K, not only has it expanded the opportunities for children, but it's also done something for the workforce. Now, my problem is that my people who I represent have been without a contract in the universal pre-K programs run by the CBOs for many years.
Still?
Yet, there's an issue where the city has provided additional money for teachers and yet have not done parity with the supervisors. So that's an ongoing issue. But by and large, the idea of an expansion of U-Pre-K is a wonderful idea. And in fact, one of the things that we push for is that we wanted to make sure that these sites also had school safety, because that was critical. We wanted to make sure that school safety agents were assigned to these sites. Now, I believe that has now happened.
And where are these new sites?
Well, some of them are standalone sites. Some of them are in buildings that were not traditional school buildings. But we've asked that everyone that the DOE has, that there's a school safety agent assigned to them. So that has really worked out.
Wonderful. My next question would have been that, of course, we represent the school safety agents.
Correct.
And how is it the relationship now between the principals and school safety agents? I hope it's getting better.
Oh, I think it has really expanded. My first vice president, Randy Herman, has a great relationship with school safety and the NYPD. In fact, the other day we had a great celebration, a welcome back to school celebration, where we had your local.
Yes.
And the PD and the school safety agents and their supervisors all together with the DOE over at our offices as a welcome back celebration, talking about how we work together, because there are a lot of changes in school safety. But as educators, we believe that the school is a community and all the partners are part of this. It's not just teachers and supervisors. It's not just school safety agents. It's the cafeteria workers, the school safety agent, the custodian, the teacher, and the school leadership. So it's very important that we all work together. And I think that relationship is working well, because we now have protocols when there's an issue that we tend to work out the issues.
Yes.
And so I think that it's helped us a great deal.
We have a new school disciplinary code that was just enforced. How is that going to affect the learning process?
Well, we've done this whole piece now on what we call restorative justice. We want to reduce the number of suspensions, and research has shown that students who get suspended tend to wind up going into incarceration, the criminal justice system. They have more contacts. We're trying to develop a way of how do we look at students' behavior, not so much as always something that's criminal, but it's a child's behavior. And what do we do to sit down and talk to this child about making this child understand the behaviors? So now, instead of being really, but it takes time. So you have to understand something. During the day now, instead of Johnny, you're acting up, get out,
right,
we now say, okay, Johnny, sit down. Tell me what's going on. Why are we going through this? So I'm going to tell you, this is difficult, because there are two pieces at play here. You want to have a safe and secure environment where everyone's safe and secure, Johnny as well as all the other students and adults interacting with him. But you also want to find a way that can help Johnny understand what his issues are, and that we can get him on the right track without throwing him out of school, without giving him the stigma of being suspended, without setting him onto this road to the juvenile justice system and to incarceration. So we need to work on it as adults. But we need to bring this whole, that's why it's so important to have these services in the school, and you have adults who have been trained to deal with that. And that's worked. Mm-hmm. When we have school safety agents who work together with the schools and do that and understand this idea that it's not just about, you're there to provide a service as a school safety agent, but you're also there to use the expertise that you've been trained into giving to how do we deal with children, how we deal with adolescent behavior, and become part of the total school program.
It makes a lot of sense.
A lot of sense.
Now, there's also talk the mayor has this committee, and very shortly they want to come in and unilaterally recommend removing metal detectors from some of the schools to start. You and I have had conversations about these things. And they have their philosophy, but I believe if they want to remove metal detectors, they should start with City Hall and Tweed Building first.
I hear you. We've disagreed on this in some instances. I just hate the idea that students walk through these places and they almost act like they're taking off the belt, they're taking off the boots. And is this how a school should be? And I think that there needs to be a lot of conversation about how we look at making sure that we have a safe and secure environment, but also protect the adults. And I don't know if metal detectors and whatever you want to call them are the answer, but you do have a point there, because you can't walk into City Hall without going through one, but then you say it's all right to go into a school without one. And I've heard from all sides of this, and I think the jury's still out on where this is going to go. Yeah. I have some of my members who want them removed and have asked us to fight to get them removed because of the stigma that is attached. My question is, if it's good for some schools, how come we don't have them in all? Nobody wants to have the conversation.
Nobody wants to have the conversation.
So, I want to know why some schools have them and other schools don't, and they tell me there's a rubric assigned to it. Well, that was a rubric from 10, 15 years ago. What is happening with that school now? And then there's the whole issue, Greg, being very honest with you, that people tend to say, well, in these communities, we need them, and in other communities, we don't need them. And that's a stigma that we got to work on.
Yeah, but, you have the public housing developments and those neighborhoods, and we don't have metal detectors in public housing, but we have a lot of shootings occurring there. I mean, stop and frisk was a topic. The murder rate is going higher. The shootings, it looks like every weekend you can look forward to somebody being shot. So I don't know where we're going in society. This morning I came in, I saw a guy get off a bike and pee right on the corner of 14th Street and 8th Avenue, because I know we relaxed the laws on public urination. And me, I'm a law and order person. So I had a conversation, and I know John Jay High School was one of the schools that they said, we want to take the metal detectors out. But I happen to know that every day after school, the kids congregate in front of the Barclays Center, and the school safety agents have to be stationed there. And last month, a child was stabbed, and the students were from John Jay. So the knife didn't go into the school because they had the metal detectors, but the knife was at the Barclays Center where the child got stabbed. So, I would caution people to say, there's got to be some give and take here before you.
But isn't that a bigger issue about society? When we think about how we're raising children as a whole, how is society treating the ills of its own society, and what should we be doing about that? And you see that the problem is that if you talk to parents, they want the child during the day to be in a safe and secure environment. And I always answer the question, but I want the child to be safe 24/7.
Yes.
And so we need to talk about how do we secure the child 24/7 and make the child safe 24/7. Well, that's the issues we need to have. Now, the question I have about why the kids hanging out at the Barclays Center, if we were doing more programs after school during the day, in the evening, then maybe instead of them hanging out in front of the Barclays Center, they'd be in the gym, or they'd be in the school doing music or art or drama or something else.
You got the answer.
Okay. And then they'll say, but we don't want to pay for that.
You got to pay for it.
Well, we're going to pay to incarcerate the kids who just stabbed them.
Far
more than what we would have paid to keep them.
Because less to educate them than to incarcerate them.
Absolutely.
So it works, and
it does work.
We're out of time, but I just want to say, Ernie, we got to pick this up again. That was a good conversation, because we have to have programs. You want to take metal detectors out of schools? Let's have some programs for the children that they don't join gangs and have other influences.
And we have some great programs out there. We just have to implement them.
Got to implement.
Replicate them.
Got to come up.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to Reaching Out, and our very special guest was Ernest Logan, the president of the CSA Council for Supervisors and Administrators. Thank you very much.
Thank you.